The great hall of Blackthorn Ridge was silent except for the sound of chains dragging across stone. Elira Voss walked with her head high, though her wrists ached under the iron, and her bare feet were numb from the cold floor. Around her, the pack had gathered to watch. No one spoke. No one dared. At the far end of the hall sat King Cade Ashford, ruler of the Northern Wolves, a man whose name alone could silence a room. He did not rise when she was brought before him. He simply watched her with eyes the color of a winter sky, distant and unreadable. "This is the woman accused of killing Beta Ronan," his advisor announced, his voice echoing off the high stone walls. "She was found near the border, close to where his body was discovered. The evidence is enough." Elira lifted her chin. "I did not kill him. I was gathering herbs. I am a healer, not a murderer." A few low murmurs moved through the crowd, but no one stepped forward to speak for her. She was an outsider, from the Hollow, a settlement of wolves who had lived apart from the kingdom for generations, distrusted by nearly everyone in Blackthorn Ridge. Cade rose from his throne slowly. He had ruled for 6 years since his father's death, and in that time he had learned to keep his emotions locked away, buried beneath duty. His mate had died before he ever had the chance to claim her, taken by illness when he was still a young wolf learning to lead. Since then, he had ruled with a colder heart, believing sentiment only made a king weak. He stepped down from the platform and circled her once, studying her face, her posture, the quiet defiance in her eyes. Then something shifted deep inside his chest. His wolf, usually calm and controlled, stirred violently, clawing at the inside of his mind with a desperation Cade had not felt in years. He forced himself to remain still. "Take her to the cells," he said, his voice flat. "She will be executed at dawn, as a warning to the Hollow that violence against this pack will not be tolerated." Gasps rippled through the hall. Elira's breath caught, but she said nothing. Arguing would only prove she was afraid, and she refused to give this cold king that satisfaction. As the guards led her away, her collar shifted slightly, revealing a small crescent-shaped mark on the side of her neck. It was faint, easy to miss unless someone was looking closely. But Cade was looking, and the moment his eyes landed on it, his wolf let out a howl so loud and sudden that every wolf in the hall flinched. It was not a howl of anger, it was a howl of recognition. Cade staggered back, gripping the edge of his throne for support. His advisors rushed to his side, asking if he was unwell, but he waved them off, his mind spinning. He had not heard his wolf howl like that since the day his mate had died. It was the sound of a bond calling out, desperate and aching, refusing to be ignored. He told himself it meant nothing. Coincidences happened. Marks like that were not uncommon among wolves. But as the night wore on and the pack settled into uneasy silence, he found himself unable to rest. His wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin, urging him toward the cells with a force he could not explain. Unable to resist any longer, Cade left his chambers well past midnight and made his way down to the dungeons. The guards were surprised to see him, but they said nothing as he waved them away and approached her cell alone. Elira sat on the cold floor, her back against the stone wall, watching him with the same steady defiance she had shown in the hall. "Have you come to gloat," she asked quietly, "or to make sure I don't escape my fate?" "I came to ask questions," Cade said, his voice quieter than he intended. "You already sentenced me. What could you possibly need to know now?" He studied her for a long moment. "The mark on your neck, where did it come from?" Her hand moved instinctively toward her collar, covering the mark. "It has been there since I was a child. I do not know its origin. Why does it matter to a king who has already decided I am to die?" Cade did not answer right away. His wolf pushed against him, demanding closeness, demanding recognition, but he held himself back, unwilling to trust an instinct that felt too sudden, too impossible. "It matters," he said finally, "because my wolf reacted to it, the way a wolf reacts to a mate." Elira's eyes widened slightly, though she quickly masked her surprise. "That is not possible. I have never met you before tonight." "I know," Cade said, "which is why it makes no sense." Elira lowered her hand from her collar, though she did not relax. Perhaps your wolf is simply grieving for what it lost and searching for it in the wrong place. Grief can twist even the strongest instincts. Cade considered her words longer than he expected to. Perhaps, he said, but my wolf has never been wrong before, not in 6 years of ruling this pack. It has warned me of danger, of betrayal, of storms before they broke over the mountains. It does not howl without reason. And yet you still plan to have me killed at dawn. The words landed heavier than she intended them to, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Cade looked away first, his jaw tight, torn between the duty he had carried since his father's death and the confusion clawing at his chest. I gave my word to this pack, he said quietly. A king who breaks his word without cause is no king at all. Then find your cause, Elira said, before the sun rises. He left without another word, his mind heavy with questions he could not yet answer. He did not sleep that night. Instead, he called for old Maren, the pack's historian, a wolf who had served 3 generations of kings and remembered stories long forgotten by everyone else. Maren listened carefully as Cade described the mark and the reaction of his wolf. Her expression grew troubled as he spoke, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long moment before speaking. There was another mark like that, many years ago, she said slowly. Your mother wore one, passed down through her bloodline. It was said that any wolf born with it carried the promise of the true mate bond, strong enough to be recognized even after years apart, even after death was believed to have taken one of the pair. Cade felt his chest tighten. My mate died. I attended her burial. Maren hesitated. Did you see her body, my king, or were you told she had passed, and given no chance to confirm it yourself? The question struck him like a blow. He had been young, grieving and trusting of the elders who managed the arrangements after her sudden illness. He had never questioned it. He had never been allowed to. He spent the rest of the night searching through old records with Maren's help, uncovering fragments of truth that had been buried for years. A conspiracy among certain council members, fearful of the power a union between 2 bloodlines might bring, had arranged for his intended mate to be taken away and hidden among the wolves of the Hollow, far from Blackthorn Ridge, where she would grow up unaware of her heritage. Her supposed death had been staged to prevent anyone from searching for her. Cade sat in stunned silence as the truth settled over him. The woman he had sentenced to death at dawn was not a criminal from an enemy settlement. She was his mate, stolen from him as a cub, raised in ignorance of the very bond that had just called out to him across a crowded hall. Dawn was only hours away. He rushed back to the dungeons, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. Elira looked up as he entered, exhaustion evident on her face, though she still held herself with quiet strength. I need you to listen to me, Cade said, kneeling in front of her cell. Everything is about to change, and I need you to trust me, even though I know I have given you no reason to. She studied him carefully. You ordered my execution only hours ago. I know, he said. And I was wrong, not just about the accusation against you, but about who you are. He told her everything Maren had uncovered, watching her expression shift from disbelief to confusion to something closer to quiet grief as the pieces of her own life began to make sense. She had always felt out of place in the Hollow, always sensed that her past held secrets no one would explain. Now she understood why. If this is true, she said carefully, what happens now? You cannot simply undo an execution order in front of your entire pack without consequence. I know, Cade admitted, but I would rather face the consequences of the truth than let it be buried again. When dawn broke, the pack gathered once more in the great hall, expecting to witness the execution promised the night before. Instead, Cade stood before them with Elira at his side, no longer in chains, and revealed everything he had learned. He spoke of the conspiracy, the stolen mate, the years of grief built on a lie, and the mark that had called his wolf home the moment he saw her again. The hall erupted into disbelief and anger, though not directed at Elira. The council members responsible for the deception were summoned forward, their guilt evident in their refusal to meet Cade's eyes. He stripped them of their titles on the spot, declaring that no wolf who valued power over truth deserved a place among the pack's leadership. One of the elders tried to argue that the decision to hide Elira had been made to protect the kingdom from a union that might have shifted the balance of power between bloodlines, but Cade silenced him with a single, sharp look. "You did not protect this kingdom," he said. "You protected your own influence, and in doing so, you stole years from 2 lives that were never yours to control." No one in the hall spoke in the elder's defense. Even those who had once supported the council's decisions now understood the depth of what had been taken, not just from their king, but from the young healer who had grown up not knowing why she always felt like a stranger among her own people. Turning to Elira, he took her hand gently, aware that every eye in the hall was watching. "I cannot undo what was taken from us," he said, "but I can promise that from this day forward, I will not let fear or pride keep me from the truth again." Elira studied him for a long moment, weighing the events of the past day against the sincerity in his voice. She thought of the hollow, the small stone cottage where she had grown up healing wounds no one else wanted to touch, the quiet nights spent wondering why she never quite felt like she belonged among the only family she had ever known. She thought of the years spent believing she was simply different, never once imagining the truth was this large, this impossible. She had every reason to walk away, to return to the hollow and the life she had always known. But something in her, something beyond the bond itself, told her that the wolf standing before her was not the same cold king who had sentenced her the night before. He had chosen truth over pride, even when it cost him control in front of his entire pack. "I will stay," she said finally, "not because a mark on my neck says I must, but because you proved, when it mattered most, that you were willing to change." A quiet howl rose from Cade's chest, softer this time, filled not with desperation but with relief. The pack, sensing the shift in their king, began to howl as well, one voice after another joining, until the hall was filled with sound, a chorus that echoed far beyond the walls of Blackthorn Ridge. In the weeks that followed, word of the conspiracy spread, and the wolves of the hollow, long treated with suspicion, were invited to send representatives to discuss a lasting peace between the 2 territories. Elira, now recognized as Cade's true mate, worked alongside him to rebuild trust between the packs, using her knowledge as a healer to help those who had been injured during years of unnecessary conflict. She no longer hid the mark on her neck beneath a collar. Instead, she wore it openly, a symbol not of a bond forced by fate, but of a truth that had finally been allowed to surface after years of being buried. Wolves from the hollow who visited Blackthorn Ridge often paused when they saw it, some recognizing at last the quiet, watchful healer they had known for years, now standing beside the king who had once ordered her death and had instead chosen to give her a future. Cade, too, found himself changed by the experience. He ruled with the same strength his people expected, but now tempered with a willingness to question, to listen, and to admit when he was wrong. His wolf no longer paced restlessly through sleepless nights. It was calm, settled, finally at peace beside the mate it had never stopped searching for. The war between Blackthorn Ridge and the Hollow, which had simmered for generations, quietly came to an end, not through conquest, but through the courage of 2 wolves willing to face an uncomfortable truth in front of everyone who doubted them. Some nights, when the kingdom was quiet and the fires in the great hall had burned low, Cade would find Elira standing at the window of their chambers, looking out toward the distant hills that led to the hollow. He would come to stand beside her, not speaking, simply present, and she would lean into him the way she never could have imagined doing on the night she had been dragged before him in chains. Neither of them spoke often of that first night, but it remained between them as a quiet reminder of how close they had come to losing a future neither had known to hope for. And though the kingdom would remember many things about that dawn, what its people spoke of most, for years afterward, was the moment their king had stood before them, ready to lose everything for the sake of the truth, and found, instead, that he had gained back everything he thought he had lost.